minute before everybody comes on. So I'm Rhianne Ray. I run Type On Data. My business is all about process improvement and improving the way that people do things. I'm all about automation, using technology, training to get the most out of the people that work in your organization. And I'm doing a series of webinars this year. So this will be the third, I think it is. And it's all about saving time and improving the way people do things. So the first webinar was on Microsoft's Copilot. So how I use Copilot in my business. The second one was on Microsoft for busy people. So all about scheduling, templates, how to use Word, Excel, all the different Microsoft packages just to make things better in your organization, basically. It was a quick run through on each one. And yeah, they were all on YouTube if you didn't catch them. So I will make sure this one gets uploaded as well. So let's jump in. So today we're going to go through continuous improvement. Continuous improvement is massively important when you are trying to make your organization run a bit more efficiently. This is a bit more of a talking one. So if you've been to the last two and you've seen that all mine are about clicking here and going there, it's quite interactive, but this is a talking one. So bear with, because I know it can be quite tiring, I think, sometimes. One thing I will say is I've got a couple of polls in here, so in the presentation for you to engage with. So I'd love it if you could engage. So let me share my screen. So this is only my third webinar, so I've tried a few different platforms. I've tried Teams webinar. The second one was Zoom, and this one is just a Teams meeting. So I'm just trying to find the best platform for people to be able to log into, to use, and what's familiar to them. So apologies if it's not your platform of choice, but I want to try a few different ones just to see, what the best one is, basically. So I am going to share my screen now. I'm hoping it will display. Well, I've got a giant screen, so I'm hoping it looks okay for you. So let's get going. Okay, so continuous improvement is basically the practice of looking at everything you do in your organization all the time and seeing the things that you can improve. It's important because we waste a lot of time day to day. We waste a lot of time with the quality of the output, the things that we put out there. So by improving things each bit is super important. So by improving the process, you're going to drive innovation and growth. You're going to enhance efficiency and productivity. Employee engagement is super key, because by improving things, you'll find that your employees are much more engaged and happy rather than being frustrated by things not working out. The same with customer satisfaction. So customers will be happy because they've got a consistent output. It builds adaptability and resilience, and it supports long-term sustainability and creates a competitive advantage. Many organizations that I go into very much do the same thing that they've always done and expect it to go to become profitable and stay competitive with their competitors. The customers want to stay with them, but actually it doesn't work out like that. A lot of the times that your competitors will just win on price. So even though you may have a really good service, by your competitors being able to be more efficient means they're going to be cheaper with the same level of service. So by being mindful of the things you can improve in the organization can make you more competitive. So this is one of the biggest important things, and then the accountability side of it as well. So continuous improvement is about engaging everybody in the organization with it. So everybody needs to be engaged with seeing areas for improvement, things that are wasting time, things that are wasting product, services that aren't working, services that are difficult. So the accountability becomes across the board for everybody in the organization. So that's where the whole continuous improvement comes from. So I'm just going to do a little poll. So you've got reactions at the top of your teams. So I'd like you to react. So let me go to the next slide. Okay, so how would you describe your organization's approach to continuous improvement? So do you say that you have a strong culture? So everybody's engaged with trying to improve things? Give me a thumbs up. If you think that you have some improvements, but it's not really that structured, can you use the heart? And then use the clap hands if you're just starting to explore things. And then a laughing face if there's not much improvement happening. And then a shock face is that you're not sure, and that's why you're here. So if you could just use those reactions on the teams, I would be super grateful. One of the main reasons is lots of organizations do or don't improve things. It's not important to them. Continuous improvement is not important. So I think that's where the shocked face would come from for a lot of people. So I go into organizations and I review the things that they do. I review what they use, and I basically can see those areas that people improve and they don't. Most of the time it is the shocked face. So I don't know if that's working. I'm going to assume it's not because nobody's reacted. So let's just move on. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these are the key principles now of what continuous improvement is. So the customer focus. So at the end of everything that you look to improve, so the main reason why you want to improve the way your organization is for your end customers. So if you are a customer facing organization that creates a product, you need to make sure that that product is going to them in its quality, it's going to work, it's going to last, all those types of things. But if you're service based, you need to make sure that what your customer is getting is what they expect to be getting. If you are maybe an internal person with other departments that you support, so your customer is those departments. So are you supporting them in the best way that you can be? And that's where continuous improvement comes in, by listening to those bits of feedback that come back. You can then improve the way that you do things. So you might get something like your email turnaround is maybe 4 days. We need instant reactions. Okay, so why is it 4 days? What things can you put in to improve that 4-day thing, that 4-day feedback routine? Okay, maybe at the end of every day you prioritize responding to emails, because sometimes people don't always need an answer, they just need a response. There are some statistics on the out of office function. So instead of using it as I'm on holiday, you use it as I've got your email and I will look to respond within the next 48 hours, because then that starts the clock again. People then start thinking, okay, they've got my email, so I'm not going to send another email to chase up my first email. I'm not going to ring to chase up my email that I sent. So just sometimes those small little changes, such as that reply response, so or out of office, I can't remember what it's actually called. So just switching that on can be really important. You need to make your customers happy. One of the biggest things that makes customers very unhappy is just the ghosting, so silence from you. So yeah, if anything that you can do to actually just respond quickly is going to be massive enhancement for you. The next one is incremental improvements. So it's not about saying, okay, today we're going to change the world and that's the plan. We're going to change everything that we do. that isn't the way to go forwards. It's all about those small changes, those little things that you can put in. So like I just said about the out of office, or the auto response, isn't it? So for the auto response, you've added just a small change into your process that will increase your customer satisfaction. And it is just a small thing. A change doesn't have to be disruptive, so you can educate your employees and your staff to actually understand that any ideas for enhancement that they might have can change things on a massive basis. I did one years ago, just reminded me. So I worked for an accountancy firm. I was implementing a large scale IT bit of software for them. And as part of that, we mapped all the processes. So we mapped the bookkeeping, the VAT returns, the management accounts. And on the bookkeeping, they would get a spreadsheet from the customer to fill in, that the customer fills in, sorry. They would then go onto Sage, they would import this spreadsheet, obviously making any adjustments if there was any formatting changes. They'd upload the spreadsheet and they'd perform the bookkeeping, the reconciling, all that type of stuff. And it was found that by automatically importing that spreadsheet, we saved something like, I feel like it was like 40,000 hours. It was crazy. It was like so many employees over the course of a year. It was a massive accountancy firm. Hence the big change. But that was something tiny. That was an absolutely tiny change, that instead of the person going in and going file, search, upload, and it coming in, and you're waiting for it to load, every night the spreadsheets are just dropped in and automatically imported. So it was a big change for them, and it was massive cost. I think they saved employees, I'm sure. This was years ago, so apologies, I can't remember. But again, it was a small change, tiny, tiny change. The next one was employee involvement, and this is key. Okay, so your in your organization, you may have lots of management structure. So you may have like a CEO, a director, a manager, a team leader, and a member of the team. So there's how many layers in there. Continuous improvement does not come from the top. It does not come from the CEO saying, okay, I want to change this, I want to change that. It's about the people at the bottom, and I don't want to say the bottom because that is just not what it's not the involvement I'm trying to get. So the people who are frontline, so frontline people who are doing the do every day, they're the ones who are going to see those enhancements. And by creating that culture, so by embedding that culture with those people on the front line who can be encouraged to give those bits of feedback, things that they've seen, things that they want to improve, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that feel the pain. As you start going up through the management ranks, they get reports and dashboards and data. They don't actually feel those bits of pain. I mean, I saw that bookkeeping because it was a bank environment that each bank did something. So you'd be recruited as a trainee accountant and you'd be trained bookkeeping, and all the bookkeepers would be in a row on a bank, and once they were upskilled and they were great, they'd move on to the management of, I think it was VATs next, so they'd move over to the next bank of people. Their position would be backfilled with bookkeeping, and everyone would move up through the ranks. Excuse me. So I'm sat there with this bookkeeper. I think I sat with them for a day, and they just kept uploading, 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 uploading. You know, some of these bookkeepings were like 4 lines of transactions, where there was others where there was hundreds, but it was still the same amount of time uploading that file. So it was massively important. A quick win, very, very quick win. So again, so on people on the front line are the people who are going to be driving those bits and continuous improvement. They're the ones who feel the pain. They're the ones who can see things. So by being open to those suggestions, so fostering that culture in your organization is really important. I'll come through how to do that at the end, and how you get that involvement, but we'll just carry on. So the next part is data driven. So I'm big on data. So as I said, my business is type on data. So what is your type on data? So if you are a manufacturing business, you may have bits of key information such as how much output you're having. You may have maybe a service based. So you may have, using the accountants as my previous example, every month you do 40 VAT returns, 40 managements, 40 bookkeeping, 40 confirmation statements, and you know what data that is you need to do. So you can forecast what your workload is going to be for the coming month. You can see that. And that's where the data comes in. That's where looking at that, looking at things, you're actually encouraging like your employees to sort of say, okay, January is an awful month for accountants. What do we do? So we know we've got 300 self-assessments to submit in January. Okay, but we also have the VAT, the management, the corporation tax. We also have the standard tasks that need to be done. Same with, so HR is another example. Organisation have structures through the year where they have performance management, they have the appraisals are due, the bonuses are due, there's key parts in the year where you're going to be really busy and there's going to be no time for efficiencies, no time for thought. But actually, by deep diving into your data, you can see there's maybe a potential for overtime. There's a potential for time off in lieu. So you're going to work really hard during these months of the year, and the rest of the months you can take that extra time that you put in. So you're fostering the employees to come in and say, I keep working so many hours extra the months of January and it's just not sustainable. You're able to look at your data and say, well, I can see over the course of January, on average, I need an extra 30 hours from my staff. How am I going to get that? Put it out to the employees. How are we going to get that? How are we going to do it? What would you suggest? They can then look at what they think and think, well, actually, in February, it's quite a nice month because we've got everything done. We're up to date and we need a break. So you can use the extra hours you've accrued in January in February. So an improvement is not always about changing a process or getting time wins. Sometimes it's about your people and giving them something back to say, thank you for all your effort in January, and in February you're going to get all your hours back that you've taken. Obviously, being mindful that maybe you haven't got the time in Feb to allow them to have 30 hours off each of them get a month, or it's over 3 months, or they can just use the time as and when the business allows it. So it's again discussion with those frontline people to see what's going to work for them. The next part of it is process. So by setting out your processes, so as I was saying about the bookkeeping, they would download a file, they would key the file into Sage, they would submit that file, reconcile it, and then it would go off to the next processes. So that was the standard process. Sorry, it wasn't a standard, it was just the process. That was the process that they did. It allows people then, they've got the process in front of them, where can you get the wins? So the wins for that one was all uploading the transactions into Sage. So that was a massive win. What other things could be done? Okay, so each back in so this is probably about 10-15 years ago. So Sage was ran with individual accounts, and you'd open the company's Sage. So this was like a software that was installed on your machine at the time. So you'd open it, that would take time. Every single thing would take time. And by creating that culture within those people, I was able to actually encourage them to start seeing things that were quick wins. So there was things like we created automated reports out to people, automated emails, email templates. So as as a team, as a project team, we were able to see those wins because we documented the process. Too many organizations think that because they just know what they're doing, excuse me, because they just know what they're doing, they don't need to document the process, it's fine. But how do you train new people? How do you educate new people on how to do things? That's where your process comes in. Get it documented, then you can start enhancing it, and then you can start seeing what results are coming through. Again, another thing that we did as part of this project was to see how much time each process took. So we did something called time in motion. So each activity that's done. So say for example, I'm gonna keep using accountancy. What other examples have I got? Um, onboarding new staff, that's a great one. Onboarding new people, onboarding new customers. Each of that takes time. Education is one of the biggest things that we fail at. We don't tell our customers or our staff what is expected of them. So yes, half of them are given a handbook, or half of them are given a book of how it works with working with me, but nobody is actually educated on what to expect. And that isn't always to do with a handbook. That is about those interactions that you're having with those people. So you have your recruitment meeting or your onboarding meeting, and you say, okay, so next steps are you're going to receive a lot of documentation. Can you read through everything? Please ask me any questions. Once you've read through everything, we're going to meet again and I'm going to go through the HR software, or I'm going to go through the accountancy software. I'm going to go through the tools you're going to need to be an effective employee or an effective person within my organization. Then from there, you'll have your cyber training or your health and safety assessment. Whatever happens next, you educate people at the point. So you tell them what you've told them, and then you send them information about what you've told them. So you're getting 3 hits at explaining things, because don't forget, everybody learns differently. Everybody is very what's the word? Individual in their needs. They need to see it, they need to read it, they need to do it. That's like the 3 key principles of any sort of education. So see it, do it, hear it. They're just real key things, and it's including everybody's learning needs as well then. So you're getting 3 hits of it. Same thing with the customers. This is what to expect of me. This is what you're going to get, and this is what we're going to do next. So it's educating them. Sometimes people can sit there and say, we've talked about this, we've done this, but sometimes it's all about giving that bit of documentation or a bit of guidance to say what's next as well with your customers. If you've done that, if you've also done your out of office, not your out, yeah, your auto response, they've got a response. So I've sent an email this morning on something because I never got a response. I think I submitted for I think it was a grant or a bit of training or something, and I'd submitted my thing and I never got oh, sorry, I did get a response, but it was a generic I filled a form in response. It didn't tell me what form I'd filled in. It didn't tell me what I'd entered into the form. It didn't tell me anything. And then it didn't say when am I going to hear about this? When's the next thing? So I went onto the website. On the website, it says the next course date was like the 20th of March, and then you'll get logins, and then you'll get all these things. But I was like, but when? When? So there was no like time frame there for me to go, okay, so by the 10th of March, for example, I should have had my logins to join this course, this funded course. So then I've sent them an email. So I've sent them noise. So how many times do you get noise from people in your organization or from your customers because they haven't read something or they've misunderstood something? So I may have just not read what date it is. I may have not seen it on the website, I may have not seen it anywhere, but I've sent the email this morning, so that increases their workload. And again, it's noise. So being mindful of those processes and being able to input these little bits of communication is also really important. The next part on process is standardization. So once you've got a process in, you need to create a standard. So a standard is a standard operating procedure, and that is the way to perform any task within your organization. Or even for your customers, it's the exact same thing. This is what you expect from your customers. A customer charter, for example. This is, as providing you a service, I expect from you your appraisals on this point, your accounts on this point, to give you the best level of service. So that's one of the key things is education. But the standard then becomes, it's kind of like the Bible for people to follow. this standard needs to be clear. So there's this video I seen on I think it was TikTok or Facebook the other day, and it's the father and son, and they're sat there and they're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So the son is telling the dad how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich. So it basically says, you know, you put the peanut butter on the bread. So the dad gets the jar of peanut butter and puts it on the bread. And the son's like, no, like on the knife, and you get the knife and put the peanut butter on the bread. So the dad's like putting the peanut butter jar on the knife, and the kid's like, no, you put the knife in the peanut butter. So then the dad puts the handle side into the peanut butter jar, not the spreadable side. And this little kid starts crying because he's so frustrated because he thinks he's trying to explain something to his dad and it's really logical. But you have to remember that half the people that you're talking to, this isn't their bread and butter. They don't understand your technology, your jargon, your processes and your practices. So creating those standards for your customers as well as your employees are really important, because then they know without a doubt, if I submit to you my performance review rating for this year, my bonus will be calculated correctly. If I submit to you my bookkeeping, my VAT return will be calculated correctly. So it's that level of confidence as well, and that's where standards come in. If you've got standards across your organization, then, as well as one of the main things, is you become more valuable. If you're ever trying to sell your organization, the standards within the organization actually make it a lot more profitable. So that's another thing to think about when you're documenting your processes. So the next one is sustainability. It's a key buzzword at the minute is sustainability, but in this respect, it's all about those lasting changes. It's all about putting those standards and processes in that actually make those changes consistent for a long period of time. One of the examples, I was with a manufacturing firm, and they put something in a machine. It was a roll. It was wet wipes. So they were putting the roll of material in the machine. And what would happen is this material would go through, it would get coated with the, I don't know, cucumber fragrance or whatever. And then it'd go through, be folded, be cut, be folded, be cut, or cut, folded, whatever it was. And then it'd go into the bag. But what happened is it would snag. So I think it was like every so many rolls, the roll would snag basically. So what happened was somebody with it on the line basically was like, what if we just turned the roll over? Like, what if we, you know, like the toilet roll, and you either have it hanging over the top or you have it hanging at the back. So they turned the roll and they found that it was only snagging, it was like 1% of the time, whereas before it was about 7% it would snag. So that tiny little improvement of when they're loading that roll on by changing the way it went on made a massive difference in, I mean, 7% to 1% was massive. If we go back to the data side of things, what you should see when you make a change is, so say for example, you do 100 things in an hour, then you will see that by making that change, you now do 110 and you're consistently doing 110. When you go back to 100, you can then go, well, what's happened? What's changed? What's changed now to go from 110 back to 100? Well, then you'll find that somebody's not following the standard and they're not putting the roll on in the new standard way. So again, by having those standards documented, it means that it's consistent, and having the data measured also means that you can see that those changes that you've put in will be consistent for longer periods of time. And when they're not, you can look straight at those changes that you've done to sort of say, well, are we still doing that? Are we still looking at that? The next part is the people. Okay. So as I said earlier, so your people are the what's the word? The most important part of all this. It's not about the management or the leaders, it's about the employees, about the members. being those people that will actually see day to day what those changes could be. So the biggest thing that I want to say is that no idea is a bad idea. No idea. An idea may fail. It may fail, it may not be a success, but it's never a bad idea. Once you start using words like, bad idea rather than fail or success or area for improve, using like more positive than fail you could find. By doing that, you're actually making people not want to give those ideas forwards. I worked for a company again years ago who offered 5% for the first year of improvements to people. So because I was on a project doing the finding that bookkeeping change, I wasn't eligible because that was my job. But if I'd have submitted that as a change, as an idea, I would have got something like 30 grand out of it because that 5% was massive because of the actual efficiencies that I put in. So could you put in some scheme that actually rewards your employees? So instead of people having a standard 2% bonus every year, these changes and efficiencies year on year have increased the bonus by 0.4%. So that's where the culture side of things comes from. So these are your people, these are the people that work with you because they don't really work for you. They work with you. They work with you to the end goal. They work with you to provide a service to your employees. So you need to actually be rewarding them as such because sometimes in bigger organizations, it kind of just feels like you're lying in the pockets of the people above you. So the respect for people is super valuable. Listen to them, empower them, and make sure that they're able to contribute. So that's also giving them time to actually, formulate these ideas into improvements. One of the biggest problems I've seen in organizations is the leaders gatekeeping. So if you find that you've got some really efficient teams that are coming up with really great enhancements, then you'll find that they've got a really good leader. They've got somebody who is listening to them, makes them feel valued, makes them feel heard. But if you find another department, is actually there's not much coming out of it, and the leader talks about, well, I thought of this, and I thought of that. It's probably because they're not getting a word in, and they're not allowed to feel empowered to actually make those changes. So it is super important to actually look at the data on that side of things. How many ideas are coming up through the leaders from the employees themselves? And then recognizing those, making sure that you do recognize those changes. The next one is learning and adaptability. So the other thing with the employees being feeling empowered is that you need to be open for that feedback. So no defensiveness, there's no blame culture, there's no just because you're doing something that could be improved doesn't mean that you're doing it badly. You're doing it really well, that your employees and your people are able to see things that can actually be enhanced. So it is really important just to make sure that you are open to feedback. You can adapt quickly. That's another thing I've seen is that, well, I gave, 14 different ideas in last month and I've heard nothing. Again, could there be an auto response there? Could there be some sort of, a newsletter? These are the top 10 ideas that have come this month. So there's lots of little things that you can do. And back to the other point of there is no such thing as a bad idea. As management, as leaders, as colleagues, people who come to you with ideas of improvement, if you think it is bad, if you do think that it's just not quite there, if there's something that's needed, what feedback can you give to make them go back to it? So a brilliant example is manufacturing facility down the coast. They printed plastic switch boxes. So they put a piece of plastic in, that goes down, it gets pressed, and then you've got a plastic box, happy days. But when you press it, all this plastic comes out and there's all this wastage. So for every piece of plastic, there was something like 10% wastage. So what they decided was they decided to reduce the amount of plastic put in by 5%. And what happened is they put the 95% in and they pressed it out And sometimes it would be brilliant and it would be great and it would come out perfectly and just, done. But other times it would come out one side, it'd be lower on the other side. So there's a lot of what's the word? Quality issues with it. So, okay, reducing, putting it in by 5%. Okay, so now look at where we're positioning it on this press. So then they look and they actually, if they put it on this position right here, within these guidelines, right there, and then they press it, it would come out and it'd be right. Great. Okay, they've lost 5%, they gained, sorry, 5% of product back. But what they didn't factor in was this time, okay, is it in? Is it right? Is it, oh, just move that, was actually cost them 10% of time because people were so particular about not wasting the whole product, they had to get it perfectly in these lines. So what did the enhancement become? So instead of being reduced the product by 5%, they put it back up to 10. They pressed out this plastic piece, cut out the waste, press it off, and they found another use for the waste. So all this plastic waste that came out of this switch became another product. It became I think it was like a handle on something that just got melted and fed in, and there was no waste. So sometimes it might be something that is costing you more money. So being mindful again, it might not be a bad idea. It might be a success, but is it costing you more time? So everything has a factor. Everything has a cost factor. So it's like a value, a product wastage, a time wastage. So when you're reviewing these improvements, have a little look, and you could maybe go back to the person and sort of say, we did try something like that before that wasted more time. Can you think of a new solution that would help us, something that just went in and pushed the part into this 5% wastage bit? There could be a what's the word, a template for it to slot into. So it's actually getting your employees to think a little bit outside the box, that sometimes reducing something isn't always a better idea. You just need to do it a little bit differently. And again, as I've written there, you need to learn from your successes and your failures. And by doing all that, you're creating a problem-solving mindset within your people. So a lot of organizations are run with key people doing key things. So they are risks, they need to be thought about for succession planning. There's lots of things needed there. So by creating or fostering that problem solving mindset with people means that they can fix their own problems. So instead of the whole, it's like the mother and child thing, isn't it? You're like, Mom, what do I do? How do I do this? What do I do with this? And it's like, well, what do you think? What do you think you should do with this? And it's kind of getting your employees and even your suppliers to think like that. It does go across the board. And then again, it does lead to actual the things that you're putting in being effective as well, because they've seen a problem, they've come up with a solution rather than coming to you and saying, I've got a problem. They're coming to you with, here's a solution. What can we do to get this put in? What steps do I need to take to get my efficiency put in? That's where problem solving mindset comes in. So we're going to talk about core strategies now. Your next bit's core strategies. So this is your leadership and your mindset shift. So again, you want to set your vision. So this is that your vision can be that you want to have 5-star Google reviews, you want to improve staff retention, you want to get more people talking about you. And how can you do that? You lead by example. So you're the person who is the key champion for these things. You're listening to people's ideas, you're giving them prompts to go off and be empowered to go and do what they want to do. You've given them the resources. All right, here's the data on last month's output. How can you improve that? The accountability. So, okay, so you go away, you look into how that can be improved, and you come back to me in 10 days' time with a plan of action, and we'll do it. Let's do it. Let's all do it together. Recognize and reward. So at the end of it, it's not just about the successes. So you're recognizing and rewarding the problem solving nature. So even if the thing that they've brought in isn't going to necessarily give you wins, it is actually going to well, it's going to propel the organization further because people are starting to solve problems instead. Um, the next one is empowering employees. So you're creating that safe space. Nothing is a bad idea, and you're encouraging collaboration. That is a key thing. Um, Different organizations do this in different ways. They create a form to fill in. Fill a form in, submit your idea, and then a person reviews it, a team reviews it, depending on the size of your organization, and then they get what's the word, approval to go off and investigate. Right, you've got 2 hours to go and look at that. Because again, the investigation of these continuous improvements can also be costly. So just be mindful about letting people run off and do things when actually that has its own cost to it. Um, things to add in on your form can be like how much they think it's going to cost. So many of your employees won't understand or know what the true value of an employee is, but they can say the cost of implementing this change they think will be about a day, and then you can then fill the gaps in for the price side of things. But you're empowering them to make those decisions, fix those problems, come up with those ideas, which is really important. The next one is I'm not going to do this poll. I'm going to just move on to the next because I didn't write it before. So we're just going to talk about a couple of different methodologies that you can use for continuous improvement. So lean is one of them. So lean, I've got a bit of a negativity thing about lean because I've been in a lean ran organization before. And if it's not managed correctly with the right amount of contingency, then it can fail and it can go quite badly for your people. So I burnt out because I ran in a lean manned organization. They were preparing to be sold. A more profitable organization is one with less staff and more profits. So they didn't backfill anybody and they let us all just take on the additional workload, basically. But when it's done well, lean is brilliant. Lean can make the difference of being competitive with your competitors. So you can be cheaper, you can be better. Um, it's not for this session that we've got here because it is huge. All three of these are huge, but this is just a little taste of what it is. Lean is basically eliminating waste and improving processes. So add in your contingency. So eliminating waste is a really negative way of putting it, but that can be that little bit of plastic. That 10% of plastic is being reused for something else. You're running lean because all the boxes you get in with your materials are being put through the packaging machine that makes it into packaging stuff. You're reusing everything in your organization. So eliminating waste doesn't just have to be about people. It can also be about the products and the things that you do. And then again, creates more value. I've got a few customers that only buy things from UK-based companies, so they are really keen on being sustainable. So those types of things, reusing your packaging, becoming paperless, can actually make a big difference. But don't forget to educate your customers. They're a paperless organisation, and please expect these 4 emails from us as we go through the process of delivering your product, for example, or your service. So all about education, but eliminating waste. And please make sure that you put contingency in. The next one is agile. So agile is very similar in lean, and each of these can be done with each other as well. So their own methodologies. And again, please go off and research these because they are a lot bigger than this just one paragraph that I've given you. So very important. So they are basically about being not reactive. What's the word? It's like accepting. So when you work in an agile way, Monday morning you'll go into work and you'll say, okay, we've got these 45 things we need to deliver this week, and how are we going to do it? Okay, so you're going to do this and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. That's how we're going to structure our week. It's being able to adapt to the work that's coming in. Agile organizations include like seasonal ones. So, for example, they'll run all year creating products, and then for the September through to December, they run in an agile way, adapting through time and output the amount of orders that they're getting in. So they run normally throughout the year, and then their busy times of the year, they run agile because they have to be proactive. They can't just be reactive. Have you requested the information from the customer? Does everybody know what they need to submit by this date to get it in? So that's where the agile comes in. Agile is really good when you're a service-based business and you need to be a bit more reactive. Kaizen's another one. So Kaizen is the plan, do, check, act. So it's like a way of you just continuously going through things. So if you do a VAT return and it takes you an hour, are you reviewing that? So you're reviewing the time it takes you, whether you're reviewing the amount of time that it takes from the start of the process to the end, and then it's making changes to that process regularly to keep it improving. And that's the big thing. And you should also think of that with everything that you do. Just because you've mapped your processes and just because you've done your standards doesn't mean that you're done. Continuous improvement is something that is a lifelong thing that you will do. You will constantly be reviewing your data, be reviewing the way that you do things to make sure that you are keeping competitive. Are your staff okay? Is everybody engaged? It's a really important thing. Okay, so the next one is what now? Okay, what now? What do you do? What do you do? Where do you go? Okay, so this is just a step by step of things that you need to do in your organization. So the first one, identify areas for improvement. Set clear, measurable goals. When you do that, though, make sure that you include stretch targets. So if your staff members have I'm sorry to keep using accountancy, but it's the thing that's on my mind today. Each of your staff members have KPIs, so key performance indicators. They do 5 VAT returns, 5 managements, 5 corporation tax, and 5 onboarding. So they've got 20 things to do in a week, and that's their task. Their stretch target will become 6 of each. Yeah. So your expected outcome is 5, but you want them to reach 6 without quality going down, without any issues coming in through that. So stretch targets, super important. Number 3, encourage feedback and collaboration. So that's where you're talking to each other about how are things running? What can we improve? People are talking to each other about, it's not their idea, it's a team game. You're all looking at things to improve it for everybody. Small incremental changes, as I said, you're going to measure and track progress. You're going to measure all the different bits of data that your organization collects, and you're going to track it. You're going to see what the efficiencies are doing. If they're going up and it's getting more efficient, great. If it's going down, are the standards still being followed? Celebrate and recognize successes. That is in everything that you do. Long-standing employees, people that have helped shape the business to be what it is. So it's not just about them coming up with improvements. It's actually just celebrating and recognizing them as, people in your organization. The next one is invest in training. That's a big thing. So if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Whereas if you can invest in good people in your organization, people that you see something in, people that can be molded, mentored into the future leaders, invest in those people, make them sign training agreements so that they can't leave within so many years after the training. But don't see training as an expense. Training is a what's the word? I can't think of the word, but it's something you do need to invest with. And by doing that, and by investing in your people, you're going to foster that culture of learning and experimentation. They're going to learn skills in the things that they do. So it's one of the things that I do with my customers. After I audit them, I give them 3 options. So do nothing. So ignore everything that I've said, all my recommendations, do nothing. Or do something, which is do one thing, or do everything. So once I've given you a list of, improvements that you can make, you can go ahead and fix something of all of those things. But for you, I would suggest just do one thing. Doing one thing is going to be the best thing that you can do, and that is encourage feedback and collaboration. So if you could set up those regular meetings with your staff to encourage them to talk to you about the way things are going, and ideas that the things that they can change, and then making sure that your leaders are not gatekeeping those ideas as their own. So that is super, super important. Create a form, have a suggestion box, have a dedicated online space, have a drop-in session. There's lots of different ideas. You can even do this for your customers. Have a drop-in session when people come in and tell you where and how to improve the service that they're getting. Encourage them to be part of your journey as well. So if there's anything you're going to do, I would suggest to do that one thing. Well, that was a super, super quick, and apologies for the amount I speak, the rate I speak, should I say. But I hope you can see my passion for all things processes and all things improvements. And I hope that you've gotten something from today, and even if it's just a little bit of motivation to go and have a look at the way that you do things. But I just want you to just to see how important improving your processes are within your organization. And if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to give you answers if you have any questions, or if you want to email me, I can give you an answer. Send my Calendly link over, and we can have a little chat about your organization and what you do. I have suggested a few books, which are my absolute favorite books. I can share the slides. Yep, no problem. I can send those over. If you could, not if you could, yeah, just don't share them on. That's my only thing. So just send them to you, and I'm happy for you to, show them to your staff or whatever. I'm happy for that. But the books that I've shown you, so the systemology one